Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock. It's time for The Drive, and that means that it's time for me to bring you news and information you can use as you move about the metro area. Maybe you're coming home from work. Maybe you're coming home from school. We're happy to be here for you to provide you news and information so that you're informed, and when you get home, you'll have something to talk about, okay? That's the goal each and every day. I want to talk about something that I got to be honest. When I saw this, I went, I'm not sure that I can believe this, but I've double checked it and it's correct. We talk about the border crisis, and please don't tune me out because this really lands in your backyard. And I know I talk about the border every day, just about it for some level, because I think it's an unbelievable crisis. And it's harming our nation in so many different ways. But they often say that, every town is a border town. And I think that is true. And there is a story out today which outlines how fentanyl is destroying the state of Tennessee and specifically Davidson County, Metro Nashville. The numbers are shocking. And just bear with me as I run through some of these numbers, because when you hear them, you're going to go, oh my gosh, how can that be? We have a serious fentanyl and opioid problem here in Davidson County, Metro Nashville, and the surrounding area. From the Tennessean, and I wanted, before I start and get too deep into this, I want you to understand that all the numbers that I'm going to be giving you are from 2022. I would expect, based on the way the things seem to be unfolding, that we're on track to have a worse year in 2023. But listen to this. Davidson County has the second highest rate of fentanyl overdose deaths in the country. Number 2. You're not going to believe it. This is for major metropolitan areas over 500,000 people. Davidson County, number 2 when it comes to fentanyl deaths, right behind the city of Baltimore. That's shocking. By the way, this data has been compiled by the San Francisco Chronicle. Shelby County was 12th in the country. Drug overdoses have, of course, gone crazy ever since the crisis at the border, where the border is open and the fentanyl is flowing across unchecked. The Border Patrol and ICE, they are there to secure the border in every way they possibly can, and they do a pretty good job of doing a drug interdiction mission. Although right now they're not spending as much time on that because, number one, they're overwhelmed by the crisis of people flowing across the border. But they estimate that they're only getting about 10% of the fentanyl and other drugs that are coming across the border. When we say the border crisis impacts the city in which you live, we are talking about Nashville in a huge way. I'm going to run through some statistics here. Davidson County leads the state of Tennessee in overdose deaths. In 2022, 754 people died by drug overdose in the Nashville area, a number that makes Davidson County the second deadliest major metro area in the country. 77% of those deaths were fentanyl related. Davidson County leads Tennessee in overdose deaths. Shelby County had 608. Hamilton County had 532. Rutherford County had 233, and Rutherford County had 113 in 2022. Roughly 100 people per 100,000 people who live in Davidson County died in 2022 to fentanyl deaths. Well, it was fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamines. All these drugs are streaming across the border. Tennessee, unbelievably, is 8th in the country for overdose deaths, according to the database. In the state of Tennessee, 2022, you ready for this number? 3,854 deaths attributed to overdose death, the vast majority of them fentanyl deaths in the state in 2022. I'm telling you, this is a crisis. You know, the worst state in the country, when you're talking about just the states, is California, followed by Florida, followed by New York, Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina. Tennessee comes in 8th. But when you're talking about major metropolitan areas in the whole United States, Nashville, Davidson County, number 2, right behind the city of Baltimore. I'm saddened by this. This is a tragic statistic. What are we going to do to make this better? I mean, we need to talk to our police department. How can you? I mean, that you do read occasionally. I think there was a story yesterday where they're interdicting people who are selling fentanyl, and they've had some success in doing that. But there's so much of it coming across the country, and apparently an awful lot of it is ending up right here in our area, specifically in Nashville, Davidson County. To think that of all the major metropolitan areas in the country, we're talking about New York City, we're talking about Chicago, we're talking about Los Angeles and San Francisco, where no doubt they have a big fentanyl problem, but when you look at it statistically, per 100,000, we're number 2. It is taking a toll on people in our own area. It is taking toll on people who live in our own backyard. You think the border doesn't matter? Look at these numbers, and you get a good sense very quickly that we've got a crisis on our hands. It's a crisis caused, my friends in Davidson County, it's caused by the Democrat president who has opened the border wide and allowed these drugs to come in. If you don't know how it works, let me give it to you one more time. Every day on the border, there are a group of people that the coyotes send across the river, and they head directly for the Border Patrol and the folks at ICE, and they want to have contact. They are coming here to get their little piece of paper, and they're coming here illegally, but they get their little piece of paper from the Border Patrol that says, please check in with us somewhere down the line. You're free to go. America is that direction. Oh, by the way, do you need a bus ticket or a plane ticket? We can take care of that for you. One way or the other, they're coming across, but they want to have contact with the Border Patrol and the folks at ICE. And so that happens generally early in the morning. Border Patrol overwhelmed. ICE overwhelmed. They're processing paper. They are vetting to some degree. I don't think much of a vetting takes place, but they're trying to vet these people before they send them north. Trying to determine who cannot come in, and there are a few that they send back. But as soon as the Border Patrol and ICE get tied up early in the morning processing the people, which, by the way, is the number one priority of the Biden administration, just make sure you let these people come in. And no matter how ugly the situation, we want as many of these people to be allowed to come into this country. And while they're tied up doing the paperwork and all of the bureaucratic nightmare that goes with processing those people and the problems that they bring, I mean, in some cases, there are children, unaccompanied minors that they have to deal with. They are overloaded with a humanitarian crisis of our own making. But as soon as they get tied up with Border Patrol and ICE, up the river in a place that's not near where the checkpoints are, the coyotes, the cartels, are letting the bad people in. They're saying, okay, your law enforcement is tied up. You're free to go across here. I saw the number has changed. The last time I saw it, it was 1.6 million. It's now 1.7 million gotaways. Those are people that we know came across the border. We could see them on our cameras. We could see them on the sensors that they have out there. And they're allowed to come across the border, but we don't have any contact with them. And those are the gotaways that we know about. Those are the known gotaways. There's also a category that they can't quantify called the unknown gotaways, people we don't know anything about. They're coming across, and also coming across with them tremendous amounts of fentanyl. It is such a deadly drug. You have no idea how deadly it is. And so it makes its way through the country into major metropolitan areas. And according to the Tennessean report, which comes from data that was compiled by the San Francisco Chronicle, we've got a problem, a huge problem in Nashville. Number 2, when it comes to overdose deaths in metro areas over 500,000. Number 2. Can you believe it? Well, that's the truth. That's what's going on here. So if you think that what happens on the border doesn't impact your life, talk to those who have lost loved ones because of the fentanyl overdose that came from the border. The fentanyl came from the border. The coyotes and the cartels taking advantage of the chaos to send all kinds of drugs across the border, and a good number of them are ending up right here in Nashville. And again, these numbers are from 2022. I think the 23 numbers are going to be worse. But we've got a real crisis on our hands. And it's the fault of the Biden administration, and perhaps the fault of Democrat prosecutors who are not putting bad people away when they have them. I'd like to think that if you get busted for fentanyl, you're going to do some time. I hope that's the case in Nashville. But it is a real problem that we must address, we must acknowledge. And if you're a Democrat and you're thinking about who I'm going to vote for in the mayor in Davidson County, maybe it's time to change, our horses here. Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe we get a Republican in there who will make this a big issue, give the law enforcement the resources they need, make sure that they are focused like a laser beam on trying to stop these drugs so that we can move down the list a little bit. Nashville, we're number 2. We don't want to become number 1. This is frightening. This is scary. And again, it ought to be a wake-up call for anybody who lives in Davidson County that the crisis on the border has made its way right here to Music City. 20 minutes now past the hour. Hey, if you want to add some gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. If you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, it's the place I do my business, and it's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. Now, they also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. Do you have any idea how much those old coins you have laying around might be worth? I brought in a few silver coins that I had in a shoebox. It was in my sock drawer. Hadn't thought about it in years. It turned out to be worth $1,652. I couldn't believe it. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. That's how they work, one-on-one, by appointment. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
A Senate briefing on our artificial intelligence. Elon Musk making his voice heard there. Inflation ticking up again. Plus, one pharmaceutical company says it's close to finalizing a 2-in-1 COVID and flu vaccine. That and more. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 24 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, just in relationship to that last story where Nashville is number 2 when it comes to overdose deaths in the country, when you're talking about the percentage of people who die in communities that are larger than 500,000. That's sad. You got, well, let me read you what I got here. I got from a source on the Metro Nashville Police Department. Sad fact is, due to our DA, Mr. Funk, prosecution is less than 10% on drug charges unless it's attached to other charges like homicide, aggravated assault. My fellow officers and I hardly ever get a guilty conviction with time served on any drug charge alone. Usually, you just get probation if any sentence at all is handed out. Sounds like we have a prosecution problem that also contributes to this problem. And you got one on the text line there, Chris. Tell me about this. Is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, this was interesting. It was a texter just a few minutes ago. Says, I was working in court this morning in Lebanon where a man was being held on a federal hold from Russia for suspicion of being a terrorist. Said
What?
His family was also there in the court, present in court with him, and they said they entered the country via the Mexican border.
Wow. On the terrorist watch list, being processed in Lebanon. And we don't think we have a crisis on the border? This is so scary. I mean, I look at this every day and I say, I pray that we don't have another attack against the homeland. But these people coming across the border who are on the terrorist watch list, there's some of them that we know about, some that we don't know about, but he's being held he got all the way to Lebanon, Tennessee. And now they got through because they came through the border and nobody stopped them. This is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. So I don't know what the answer is except to say that what we have now is not working. And look, mayors only have so much power, but I do think that as we look at the election that's about to take place, and by the way, I've looked at the numbers of people who voted early in this runoff election, and the Republican Raleigh, if there was a good, solid turnout, a really good, solid turnout by voters in Davidson County who happen to want to vote for something different than the status quo, she could win it. But it means every single conservative in Nashville will have to show up and cast their ballot on election day if that is to happen. Now they only have so much power, but you are the person in charge of the police department ultimately. You can direct resources to the police department and to other areas where you think we do something different. I think maybe, honestly, the one thing that we can do, you say, well, what can I do about it, Brian? What can I do about it? Well, you can do this if you live in Davidson County and if you're a Republican or a conservative, or if you're just within the sound of my voice and you think things are going to hell in a handbag in Davidson County, Nashville, well, then, here's something you can do about it. Start with a small step in the direction of getting different leadership in the town. We need to make sure that we're talking about this. We need to make sure that our district attorney, Glenn Funk, is doing his job when it comes to people who are selling drugs in our community. And on a national level, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to bring pressure upon this administration. I mean, it's funny who's bringing the pressure right now. The people that are bringing the pressure right now on the Biden administration are Democratic mayors in blue cities around the country because they're getting creamed with all of the people who are coming there that are usurping their resources, and that they're having to house and to feed and educate their children. And so that's one thing we could do. But the border crisis doesn't end at the border. It doesn't end in Texas. It doesn't end in Arizona, New Mexico, or California. It ends up in our backyard, as we saw here today in Lebanon. By the way, I've got a good source I can check on that story and get some more details on, and I will. And it ends not at the border, but in our own backyard, and we have got to do better. And I know that we're just, you say, well, I'm just one person. What can I do? Well, Davidson County, here's what you can do: take one step in a new direction. Because what we got going ain't working right now. It's embarrassing. It's sad and embarrassing. And Democrats in the White House and Democrats in Davidson County just aren't stepping up to the challenge. 3:30 now on Super Talk.
30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 83 degrees in Nashville, and Middle Tennessee set to stay calm, clear, and sunny these next couple of days. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. A Senate briefing on artificial intelligence had members of both parties expressing their worries about the emerging technologies. Stephen Portnoy reports technology executives also shared their concerns.
The closed-door session brought together some of America's leading tech executives to educate senators about the risks and benefits of AI. Elon Musk says a regulatory agency should serve as a referee.
I think the consequences of AI going wrong are severe.
The Tesla and SpaceX CEO, who last year bought Twitter, says he worries about civilizational risk.
There is some chance that above zero that AI will kill us all. I think it's low, but there's some chance.
Members of both parties emerged from the summit to say it may soon be time for a new law.
Inflation ticking up again. Today's report shows 2 consecutive months. It's now estimated the typical American household is spending $235 more a month to buy the same goods and services as they did a year ago due to the inflation, and $733 more than they did 2 years ago. And one pharmaceutical company says it's very close to finalizing a 2-in-1 COVID and flu vaccine. Derek Dennis.
Moderna says it's working on a combo flu and COVID shot to ward off the effects of COVID-19 and seasonal influenza. Both vaccines could be given in a single dose. Clinical trials are ongoing, but the company's president says the combination shot could be available by 2025. Moderna estimates the shot will be a boon for the company, raking in a potential $15 billion in revenue annually.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic are next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right, let's talk about Everseal. And I think what I'd like to do is explain exactly what it is, because it's something you may not have heard about. Everseal is a sealant for exterior wood and concrete. Now, how many times a year how many times do you do that? Do you do about once a year, twice a year, you seal like your deck or something like that? Well, if you were to use this process, they would come in, and here's what they would do. They would start with a deep cleaning, and then they would clean your wood and concrete, make it look as new as possible. Then they would apply this patented sealant, which will absorb all the way through. It doesn't actually, it's not a coating. It becomes a permanent part of your wood and concrete, and it will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. I mean, it's technology that's been around for ages, but mostly used in industrial applications. And the folks at Everseal figured out a way to do it, to seal your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. 30 to 50 years. Think about how much money you would save. I mean, if you seal your deck once every couple of years, then you wouldn't have to do it for 30 to 50 years. Think how much time you save, see how much money you would save from having to do over and over and over. Well, listen, if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA, or go to ever-seal.com. .338 Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. I think we'll move into our 2024 coverage because things are happening. I've got 2 or 3 good stories here that I think you're gonna like. I'm gonna start with this one. Normally, I do not bring you a lot of stories or pieces from the Washington Post. You know what you're getting with the Washington Post, right? But right now, I think it's fun for us as conservatives to sort of listen in to the conversation that Democrats are having one with the other, right? And so I found this editorial from David Ignatius. I mean, there's not a more liberal guy out there as a columnist for the Washington Post than David Ignatius. And here's the headline of his opinion piece that ran in the Washington Post today. Opinion: President Biden should not run again in 2024. Remember, we're listening into the conversation that Democrats are having, okay? He starts out by buttering up Biden and talking about a few of the things that he looks at as accomplishments. But then maybe 4 or 5 graphs in, he changes the topic and the tenor of the piece and turns a corner. He says, despite all these good things, I don't think Biden and Vice President Harris should run for re-election. It's painful to say that given my admiration for what they've accomplished, but if he and Harris campaign together in 2024, I think Biden risks undoing what he sees as his greatest achievements. Biden wrote in his political testament in his inaugural address, "When our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave us their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land." Mr. President, maybe this is the moment when your duty has been served. Again, remember, it's a Democrat talking to Democrats. Biden would carry 2 big liabilities, he says, into a 2024 campaign. He would be 82 years old when he began a second term. According to a recent Associated Press NORC poll, 77% of the public, including 69% of Democrats, think he's too old to be effective for 4 more years. Biden's age isn't just a Fox News trope. It's been the subject of dinner table conversations across America this summer. Because of concerns about Biden's age, voters would sensibly focus on his presumptive running mate Harris. She is less popular than Biden with a 39.5% approval rating, according to some polling data. Again, Ignatius, a Democrat, says Harris has some laudable qualities, but the simple fact is she has failed to gain traction in the country or even with her own party. Biden could encourage a more open vice presidential selection process that could produce a stronger running mate, and there are many good alternatives in their mind. But breaking up the ticket would be a free-for-all that would alienate black women, a key constituency, and Biden might end up at the end of the day more vulnerable were he to ditch Kamala Harris. Politicians who know Biden well say if he were convinced that Trump were truly vanquished, he would feel he'd accomplished his political mission. He will run again if he believes in his gut that Trump will be the GOP nominee and that he has the best chance to defeat Trump and save his country from the nightmare. Again, you're listening to a Democrat speak here. I just want to make sure you understand these are not my views at all. Biden has never been good at saying no. He should have resisted the choice of Harris, who was a colleague of his beloved son, Beau, when they were both state attorneys general. He should have blocked then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, which has done considerable damage to the island's security. He should have stopped his son Hunter from joining the board of a Ukrainian gas company and representing companies in China, and he certainly should have resisted Hunter's attempts to impress clients by getting Dad on the phone. Biden has another chance to say no to himself this time by withdrawing from the 2024 race. It might not be in character for Biden, but it would be a wise choice for the country. Biden has, in many ways, remade himself as president. He's still an old-time Paul, to be sure, but he is now more focused and strategic, blah, blah, blah. Time is running out. In a month or so, this decision will be cast in stone. It will be too late for other Democrats, including Harris, to test themselves in primaries to see whether they have the stuff of presidential leadership. Right now, there is no clear alternative to Biden, no screamingly obvious replacement waiting in the wings. That might be the decider for Biden, that there's seemingly nobody else, but maybe he will trust in democracy to discover new leadership in the arena. I hope Biden has this conversation with himself about whether to run and that he levels with the country about it. It would focus the 2024 campaign. From their perspective, they are now saying, you're hearing more and more people like David Ignatius saying to fellow Democrats, we got to do something different. I think this means, and again, you know what I've said about the elections of 2024. I don't know. I'm not making many grand predictions, but it's my prediction that Joe Biden will not be the nominee. I just can't see them looking at this weakened, old, shriveled up man with all kinds of cognitive issues who has a person by his side who is thought of less than he is as being the Democrat nominees. They'll get crushed, and Democrats are coming to this realization. Democrats like David Ignatius, who I just read from his opinion piece in the Washington Post today. I think these conversations are becoming more than just whispers at the dinner table or back hall talk on Capitol Hill. I think Democrats are now beginning to become truly worried that they have a guy who is going to get clobbered if he goes forward as the nominee. I don't think he will be the nominee. Who will it be? I don't know, but it won't be Biden, my guess. Here's a piece. How will independent voters determine the 2024 elections? If you've listened to me at all, you know my opinion about this. If you're a conservative and you're a Republican, you need to understand one thing, that conservatives or Republicans cannot elect a president on their own. They simply cannot do it. The party faithful are lining up behind Trump. I think the question is, where will independents be? You have to get, don't yell at me. Don't you dare call me a rhino. I'm trying to tell you something important. You have to have a fair number of the independents to win a national election. That's just the way it is. If you only have Republicans supporting the Republican candidate and you cannot get some of the middle, a good portion of the middle over to your side, you will lose the election. It says the number of voters who identify as independents has grown significantly over the last two presidential races. Voters between 18 and 44 made up 42% of the entire electorate during the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections, comprising a larger voter population than those older than 65. In every toss-up state, independent other voter registration is up compared to 2020. And that is what this election is going to come down to. Which party, writes the Washington Examiner, can win over the middle in the battleground states? Among these independent voters, nearly half say they don't want Joe Biden. Even more, 50% saying they don't want President Trump to be reelected either. These numbers open a possible pathway for an alternative ticket, as a majority of independents, 54%, say they would back a viable third-party candidate compared to just 25 who say otherwise. So there probably is going to be a third-party candidate that emerges. My guess is it will be Joe Manchin. But I'm not certain. Could be. But again, it is increasingly clear when you look at the changing demographics in America today that Republicans cannot ignore independent voters if you want to win a national election. You simply can't win without them. Be mad at me, be angry, disagree if you want, but I'm right about this. And this article is pointing that out in a very effective way. There are a great number now of people who weren't considered independents before who now consider themselves independents, and we have to figure out a way to attract them to the things that we are doing. So, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but as I used to have a preacher that I listened to when I was a kid, and I went to the church, and when he was trying to make a salient point, he would say, a word to the wise should be sufficient. And that's what I'm saying to you. When it comes to winning a national election, you cannot win if all you have are the people in your particular voting block. And it's true for Democrats as well. They can't win without winning the middle either. And if there's a third-party candidate, who knows how it's all going to play out. I'm going to have Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogles on the program tomorrow. There's a story in justthenews.com. Tennessee Congressman Andy Ogle says that Michelle Obama will replace Biden as the Democrat 2024 nominee. Tomorrow on this program, I'm going to make a wager with Andy Ogles that he's wrong. I like Andy Ogles, don't get me wrong. I'm not a shot across his bow. He says, I'm just not convinced that Joe Biden will be the nominee. I think that because of his health, because of the many bloopers and the facts that he gets lost in the Rose Garden, I think at the last minute you're going to see some switcheroo. Gavin Newsom says it's not going to be him, and so that really points to Michelle Obama maybe at the last minute stepping in here. Okay, maybe, but I'm telling you, everything that I know about Michelle Obama when I was in Washington tells me she detests everything there is about Washington, and she was very vocal to anybody who would listen to her back in the day. You heard the stories about how much she hated being in the White House. She detested it. She resisted it. She got out of there every chance. Many people don't know that, but just about every day she would leave the White House and go kayaking on the river just to get out of the White House because she hated it so much. When Obama used to joke that, well, I wish I could run again, but even if I could, Michelle wouldn't let me because she said, I've had enough. We're not doing this again. We're getting out of politics. We're going to go do something else. And she had a vehement reaction to any suggestion that she would be considered a candidate. So, I mean, I know people say this all the time, and with all due respect to Andy Ogles, I'm willing to put $100 on it that he's wrong. We'll see. Very quickly, good news. New Hampshire Secretary of State Dave Scanlon has shut down a push by some Republicans in the crucial early voting presidential primary states to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. This is an effort that, the 14th Amendment effort, and it has been shut down effectively in New Hampshire, as I expect it will be in other states around the country. 51 minutes now past the hour.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
President Biden trying to avoid a government shutdown. Multiple threats in Tennessee over the past week sparks an investigation. Mitt Romney retiring and the MTV VMA ratings. They're up, but not near what it was in the glory days. Those stories and more at 4 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 57 minutes now past the hour. Let's take a look at what's going on in the markets. First of all, oil is really important right now because it's driving inflation. Brent crude, $92 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate selling now for just under $90. It's at $88.87 a barrel. Looking at the markets, the Dow Jones Industrial down 70 points. The S&P ended the day up just 5, just barely in the green. NASDAQ up 39. But the big story is that inflation is back. John Maxett is standing by from over at Beacon Capital Management to give us more on that. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, Brian, you're right. Absolutely. Today was all about inflation. The market was taken by surprise a little bit. The expectation was that inflation was going to come in higher month over month, but it was even higher than what the expectations were. And you're exactly right. The single biggest contributor to the increase in inflation in the consumer price index was the price of gasoline, which has gone up pretty astronomically over the last couple of months. It's affecting pretty much everything from airline fares to auto insurance and certainly food that we're seeing at the grocery store. So it's going to complicate the Fed's decision next week as to whether they raise rates again or not, which the market's a little bit on edge. Tomorrow's producer price index, key indicator, something to watch as we head into next week.
All right. Thank you very much, John. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. Something awesome coming to Genesis Diamonds next weekend, September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, a 3-day designer engagement ring event showcasing the world's 2 top brands in bridal jewelry, Tacori and Verragio. Tacori from California, Verragio from New York, both flying in their entire lines, including all new rings for this special event. You can explore hundreds of exquisite American-made designer rings. Plus, Genesis will have special incentives, zero-interest financing, and up to $5,000 in instant savings. In addition, Genesis has an expanded selection of GIA-certified diamonds for this 3-day event. All shapes, all sizes, rock-bottom prices. This is the best of the best. Every Tacori ring handcrafted by master artisans with exceptional quality. Every Verragio ring made by hand with unmatched attention to detail. These are brands that other jewelers only wish they could offer, but at Genesis, they have the entire Tacori and Verragio collection. They'll all be on display next weekend. Don't miss the bridal jewelry event of the year, September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills in Cool Springs.
.401, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 81 degrees in Nashville. A sunny day and a sunny few days ahead. Complete weather and traffic report in 5 minutes. President Biden urging the House and Senate to pass a temporary spending bill and avoid a government shutdown at the end of the month. Andy Field has more.
And John Pierre says House Speaker McCarthy and the president made a deal to avoid a debt default and spending limits.
A deal is a deal.
But John Pierre says far-right House Republicans insist on new cuts and conditions.
The president, House Democrats, and Senate Republicans have stood by that agreement.
John Pierre says that's not so in the House. That is threatening the shutdown.
Right now in Tennessee, Metro Police looking into multiple threats that have come just over the last week. Between September 7th and September 13th, there were threats at the Nashville International Airport, a police precinct, the Hard Rock Cafe downtown, the AT&T building, and 2 Metro high schools, including MLK High School in Kentucky today. Right now, officials believe that these threats are all coming from outside Tennessee, and other cities around the nation are also seeing an increase in these threats. And Republican Utah Senator Mitt Romney, who was the GOP nominee for president just over a decade ago, says he will not run for re-election to his seat. Stephen Portnoy.
The announcement that he's retiring after a single Senate term caps a quarter-century of public service for Mitt Romney, who served as governor of Massachusetts and was once his party's standard-bearer. In an online video, Romney notes he'd be in his mid-80s at the end of another 6-year Senate term.
Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders.
Romney's decision to step aside avoids the potential of a GOP primary defeat in Utah. Romney voted to convict Donald Trump at both of his Senate impeachment trials.
And some entertainment news. Some good news for the MTV VMAs. The ratings were up, but they're still way off what the show's peak was. Here's Jason Nathanson.
Are you doing something? What's going to happen now?
Taylor Swift's question to a newly reunited NSYNC and her many wins at Tuesday night's MTV Video Music Awards provided a ratings boost for the show. Its biggest audience in 3 years, up 37% in total viewers from last year. That said, the show was watched by just 865,000 people on MTV. At its peak in 2011, the awards telecast drew an audience of 12.4 million. The 865,000 number just counts views on MTV. The show is simulcast on BET, VH1, and other Paramount networks. So those numbers will go up eventually, but not even close to what it used to draw.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon. Time for hour number 2 of The Drive. Let's get right to it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here today on this 13th day of September. Beautiful day outside. Hope you're enjoying it. Let's get home safely. And along the way, a little news and information you could use so that you are, the smartest person in the room when you arrive at wherever it is you're going. At home, it'd be good to be smart, but not let the, don't let the wife think that you think you're smarter than she is, because it won't work out.
No, that's never going to happen.
No, that's not,
Not have to worry about that.
It won't happen in my house because it wouldn't be true. All right. The economy, you heard a little bit about it in our report with John Maxon a moment ago. Inflation prices have accelerated 3.7%, largely driven by higher gas prices. And as I told you, gas prices are going up. The outlook for gas to continue to rise, the price of gasoline, is pretty good, given the fact that, well, it's coming from oil, and oil is rising. And when, crude oil goes up, then gasoline and diesel and other fuel going up is not far behind. But there are other signs within the economy. I think we're going to see gasoline continue to go up. And as a result of that, there's nothing that ripples through the economy anything more effectively than the high price of energy, because, it takes gas and oil to get things to market. And they pass that along. The good people down at the grocery store are not going to absorb that cost. They're going to pass it on to you, the consumer, the person who comes in to buy your goods and your services, the food and the stuff that you need to live your life. So all told, inflation went up 3.7%, and they say largely on the price, 10 just a little over, almost 11%. Candy and chewing gum, well, this is one that I look at closely. The increased cost of candy and chewing gum up 9.4%. Apples, 8.5%. Baby formula, 8.4%. Other uncooked poultry, including turkey, 6.5%. All items minus food and energy is 4.3%. Things like motor vehicle insurance up nearly 20%, 19%. Repair on motor vehicles up 17%. Women's outerwear, 9.3%. Garbage collection, I don't know why, up 8.9%. Pet food, 8.7%. You got a dog or a cat, that dog or cat's costing you more. Rent of a primary residence is up 7.8% year to year. And non-prescription over-the-counter drugs up 7.5%. Personal care products, that goop you put in your hair, that's up 7.3%. And if you want to go to a sporting event, it's up 7.2%. So there's a lot of different things that are happening out there, some of it due to the price of energy and other things. But, I mean, just across the board, there are some things that are going up. So I saw this statistic that was put together by the folks over at RNC Research, that since Joe Biden has taken office, you ready? This just, if you only remember one statistic, remember this. Since Joe Biden took office, prices are up for you, the consumer, 17.5%. 17.5%. That's how much more it costs you to live your life since Joe Biden took office. And the president is always saying, yeah, but wages are up. Well, that may be true, but they haven't kept up with the rate of inflation. When you look at it, wages are actually down 3% when you figure in inflation, down 3%. So your dollar, you're not even if you got a little raise, you're not keeping up with the rate of inflation. Wages down 3.1%. Staggering figures reveal 1.2 million U.S.-born workers lost their jobs last month. Listen to this statistic. 1.2 million U.S.-born workers lost their jobs last month, replaced by 688 foreign-born workers, as Joe Biden allows migrants to flood across the border. The latest data show that the decrease in the number of native-born workers month to month has dropped to lows not seen since April of 2020. Staggering figures have been revealed. Data comes from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that is not a good trend at all. Here is, I don't like to talk down the economy, but I am worried about the economy. I truly am. I look at the things that are happening around the world. I look at inflation. I look at the price of gasoline and other signs. Interest rates are up and a lot of people are piling stuff into credit cards. And so the question is, are we heading into a recession? From the messenger.com, 10 red flags. I'm not going to get to all 10, but I'll get to some of the more important ones. An uncertain outlook from leading indicators. Many mainstay economic indicators measure the past. So-called leading indicators reflect what lies ahead. The Conference Board of U.S. Leading Economic Index for July marked its 16th consecutive drop and its longest losing streak since the run-up to the Great Recession of 2007. Consumer confidence is just a hair above what it normally is in recessionary levels. Consumers are not confident right now. Consumers are foregoing big-ticket purchases. Retailers say that their customers have shifted their purchasing habits, spending less on things like furniture and other big-ticket items in favor of necessities. They've been trading down on grocery items, ditching pricier cuts of beef, buying a lot of chicken. We saw some switch over to even canned products like canned chicken, canned tuna, things like that. Consumer spending has remained one of the bright spots in the economy, but most investors expect consumer spending to slow by as early as next year. This according to several prognostications. This one is the one that concerns me the most. Credit cards are getting maxed out. U.S. consumers ran up their credit cards past the $1 trillion mark for the first time last month. Total household debt, which includes home and auto loans, has eclipsed $17 trillion. The Federal Bank Reserve of St. Louis records that credit card delinquencies, which are still low compared to periods such as the Great Financial Crisis, but they are on the rise. Banks increasingly reluctant to lend. The latest senior loan officer opinion survey by the Federal Reserve reports tightening credit conditions across the board, from business loans to home mortgages and consumer credit. When banks pull back on lending, businesses curb their investment and consumers cut spending, and the trend is expected to continue for at least the rest of the year. Corporate bonds are maturing and refinancing them will be costly. A lot of this stuff doesn't really apply to average folks. The yield curve, if you know about the yield curve, it is still inverted. Here's the one, though, that I think is a thing that everybody can identify with. They say that inflation is sticky. That's right, sticky. In other words, it's sticking around longer than we want it to. The soft landing scenario, so widely embraced, is based on observations that inflation has dropped precipitously as the economy continues to grow at a healthy place, and the labor market is still holding strong. The Fed, which has raised interest rates 11 times since March of 2022 to curb inflation, it has helped, but the consumer price indicates inflation has come back up, as we told you earlier, and it may take a while and it may take a lot more interest rates to get it to go down so you can get rid of inflation to 2%, which is what the Fed says they are dedicated toward trying to do. When inflation goes up like it did today, it indicates that it's going to be very difficult for the Fed to bypass another interest rate. And with an increase in interest rates, that means that, mortgage rates go up another notch. Your credit cards are becoming very, very expensive. And sticky inflation presents an ongoing risk of a recession. The Dallas Fed president said we must proceed gradually, weighing the risk that inflation will be too high against the risk of dampening the economy too much. What a tightrope you have to watch, but you cannot get rid of inflation without raising interest rates. It's the only tool that the Fed has. And then this story from Just the News, income dropped, poverty soared under the Biden, according to the Census Bureau. They have done some analysis. Despite the Biden administration's effort to tout the alleged successes of Bidenomics, I can't believe they're even trying to sell that. They're out there trying to sell it again today. And you know what? Nobody's buying. Nobody is buying that line of hooey. It is a line of hooey. It is a line of unbelievable that they're trying to tell you that Bidenomics is working. We all know it's not working because we're out here living in it, right? Maybe, I don't know, from your vaunted position there behind the iron gates at the White House, you think it's working. But out here in real America, we know it's not working. And any kind of suggestion that it is working is, I would say, laughable at best. Look, I don't want to talk down the economy. There's nothing I would like better than for all of us to be prosperous and for the economy to be churning. But if you believe that Bidenomics is working, I've got a bridge I'd like to sell you, and I'm telling you, I'll cut you a real good deal. It is not working. It is a disaster. And you just got to ask yourself, even if you're somebody out there and you have doubt about what I'm saying, let me just ask you this. Since Joe Biden became president, are you better off? Is the economy stronger? I don't think that it is. Now, part of that you would have to say had to do with the pandemic and the shutdown of the economy, but whose fault was that? I would say to you that we are not better off than we were. We are worse off than we were. And if it's true, what politicians say about it's always the economy that drives people when they go to the voting booth, then this should be a very good year for conservative candidates. 20 minutes now past the hour. Do not paint your house. Do not paint your house. I mean, well, you can paint your house if you're thinking about it, but here's the thing about paint. In a couple of years, you're going to have to paint it again. Because you know what paint does? It chips, it peels, it cracks. Now, if you were to rhino shield your house, you'd have something. That's right. You would have something that you wouldn't have to think about painting your house for another 25 years, a quarter century. Rhino Shield is not paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. Infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres that allow the coating to expand and contract. And that's why they're able to offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks at Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation, and they care deeply about doing quality work. Amanda said her home turned out beautifully. They showed up on time. The crew was very professional. Joan says the work was outstanding. My friends, the Garretts, were so impressed with the work done on their country home, it's over 100 years old, that they have 2 other projects that they're signing up for Rhino Shield with. They're very pleased. Sound like something you'd be interested in? Why don't you give Clay Morris a call at 615-474-1729. That's 615-474-1729. Learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com.
The Biden administration discussing the $6 billion that are headed to Iran in return for 4 American hostages. A 14-year-old Sumner County boy still alive after a rare diagnosis. And today's Money News. Those stories and more coming up 4:30. I'm Mac Maury here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
25 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this Wednesday, the 13th day of September. I don't know, seemed like a pretty nice day when I was out and around earlier today. I washed the truck.
Nice.
And you know, that's
your
a
truck or somebody else's truck?
No, I washed my truck.
Oh,
I
just
washed
checking.
my truck.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I like a clean machine. That's what I like. I don't like driving around in a dirty mobile. But that's a guarantee that it'll probably rain now because. And then I had to park it under the trees out here, which means it's just a matter of time till the birds.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
Time for a little bit of Tay-Tay news. Let's see what we.
People are already yelling.
Yeah, we love to play Tay-Tay music on this program. Everybody knows that by now that's not Taylor Swift.
What do you mean it's
we
not
like
Taylor
what?
Swift?
No. They're yelling at the radio. We like to irritate the Tay-Tay fans and say that this is Tay. It's Britney. Oops,
Britney?
I did it again.
Who's
I'm sorry,
Britney?
Is it? What did I say? Britney?
Yeah, who's that? I don't know. It's Taylor Swift, right?
Well, anyway, little Tay-Tay news. Taylor Swift takes a knee on politics, writes the Hollywood into Hollywood in Toto. This is a good guy. I forget the guy's name. Last name is Toto. What's his name? Jeez, it eludes me at the moment.
Little dog, maybe?
No. Christian Toto, is that his name? I think he's a columnist. Anyway, I can't remember his first name, but he writes about pulp culture from a conservative standpoint.
Christian Toto. There you go.
Christian Toto, yeah. He's a good guy. We used to get him on all the time at the station that I worked in Washington. But I got to tell you, he says, that, the question is, Tay-Tay has become sort of apolitical of late. Concerned more about just getting her big Eras tour over with, and now apparently they had cameras at a lot of these concerts, and they're going to turn it into a movie, which will break all records. I mean, you forget about the Barbieheimer. It's going to destroy the records laid out by the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer and all that.
Oh, wow.
And it's on the horizon.
There it is,
So,
October 13th.
Yep. Well, that would be a month from now.
Yeah.
1 month. That's right. It's coming, and it will blow everything away. So she's just real interested in getting that product ready and out there and focusing on the remnants of her tour and doing all things Tay-Tay. And she has not, as she has in the past on occasion, decided to get political. And the question is that people are asking is, Democrats will beg her to become, more political, to take positions, to support candidates, etc. And the question is, will she do it or will she not do it? She has done it so far. Lately she's been staying apolitical. And Christian Toto's idea is that she's going to be pressed very hard by Democrats in the days ahead to take political positions that will perhaps influence young people, young voters. I don't know. Most of her, am I wrong about this? I think most of her supporters and fans are too young to vote, aren't they? Or does she?
I could say a good number of them are. Yeah,
a good number of them, but I guess there are a number who are 18 and older. I guess it's probably true.
Say my girlfriend would have something to say about that for sure.
Oh, really? Is she a fan?
Huge TT fan. I regret to inform I may be attending this movie at some point because she didn't get to go to the concert.
And just to clarify, she is an adult.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is an adult.
To put that out there.
A consenting adult.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
To make sure.
But I was shocked, stunned, and amazed at this story, given the fact that Gannett, which runs our local newspaper, the Tennessean, is actually advertising for a position as a journalist whose sole responsibility will be to cover all things regarding Taylor Swift. I mean, they have gutted so many reporting positions within Gannett that you would think that if they had an opening and they had a little bit of money, that what they would do is they would go out there and actually, put somebody in a position to report real news. But no,
they got their priorities in order, man.
They got their priorities in order, and they say we're going to have a full-time Taylor Swift reporter.
If it includes free tickets to all the shows in the area when she comes through, they're going to be beating down the door to try to cull through all the applicants.
There will be
for that.
thousands of applicants.
Yeah.
And sadly, news will suffer as a result of this decision by the folks over at Gannett. 30 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock.
"30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees right now in Music City. Got a full weather forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. The Biden administration today again defending its decision to return $6 billion in oil revenue to Iran in exchange for that country freeing wrongly held Americans. Andy Field with the latest from Washington.
National Security spokesman John Kirby saying the U.S. is giving Iran its own frozen funds back to get captive Americans released.
It's not ransom. These aren't U.S. taxpayer dollars. And we haven't lifted a single one of our sanctions.
Kirby also saying Iran will not control the money and that Qatar is holding it to buy humanitarian aid for Iran.
In Tennessee, Matthias Uribe, a 14-year-old Sumner County boy's parents, had to make an extremely tough decision with their son, but knew more than anything that they wanted him alive. Uribe had a terrible case of the flu, caused him to be diagnosed with pneumonia and streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, went into cardiac arrest. All of the flow to his extremities ceased, and in order to live, the doctors had to remove his limbs. The ICU pediatrician said that this morning, that it is something that they hardly ever see. And now over to some money news. Chuck Sievertson.
The major indexes rose, then leveled off after the latest inflation data showed an uptick compared to August of last year. The Dow fell 70 points. The Nasdaq rose 40. The S&P gained 0.1%. American Airlines shares dropped more than 5% after the company cut its third-quarter profit forecast due to falling ticket prices, higher fuel costs, and paying $230 million retroactively to pilots that ratified a new contract. European Union lawmakers have approved new rules requiring airlines to use more sustainable fuels. The Justice Department is moving ahead with its antitrust case against Google, which is accused of rigging the market by making its search engine the default choice. A former employee testified about deals Google allegedly struck with phone companies to be programmed search engine. A former employee has filed a lawsuit against Trader Joe's alleging pregnancy discrimination.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at USS, United Structural Systems. And if you have a structural foundation issue or a waterproofing issue, and you'll know it when you see it, you need to call the folks at USS. That's especially true, following those big rains that we had. Maybe you saw something back then. Give them a call. The number is 615-488-7855. And let me just say, these are people that you're going to love doing business with. These are people who are very professional, and by the way, just really lovely people. 25 years they've been in business here in Middle Tennessee, and some of the people that work there have been with them for all 25 of those years. And there's also the 25 number continues, 25,000 satisfied residential customers. And here's how they make that happen. They come out, they look at your situation. They're just going to give it straight from the shoulder. They're going to tell you exactly what they can do to make it better. And I got a lot of testimonials here from people who say that they actually solved the problem. Here's one. The service was a triple A+++. They came, they arrived when they said they were going to. They gave me constant updates. They cleaned up after himself. And on top of all that, the work they did actually solved my problem. That's Jeffrey. That's what he had to say. Here is Jerry from Hermitage. This is the best crew we have ever had do work on our house. Best I've ever seen. Very professional. They did an excellent job. Listen, at USS, they guarantee their best. USS serves Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. The number again, 615-488-7855. "38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive. I'm Brian Wilson, and it is that time of week, Wednesdays, at right after the 4 o'clock, the bottom of the hour news. When we're lucky, we get Pete Hegseth, who's he's a host of Fox and Friend Weekend Edition, but I see him everywhere. I mean, he's a star in the Fox constellation, and we almost got him last hour, is what I understand. It's hard to keep up with time zones sometimes, isn't it, Pete?
You did. I called in, and I was promptly an hour early here on East Coast time. My apologies.
That's right. So you must be in New York right now.
I am, yeah. I'm hosting Fox and Friends all week. Yep.
Okay, good. I haven't been getting up that early. I've been running and doing other stuff. I want to run some numbers past you. I don't want to bore people with numbers, but this number shocked me this morning. There's a new Q poll out looking at the Republican presidential nomination for 2024. Now, the number really doesn't mean anything because that's not the way we elect people. We do it in state-by-state primaries. But it is a sort of an indication of where Republicans are. And when I saw this, I went, wow, now that's bigger than I've ever seen. If you look at the Republican nomination process, 62%, according to the Q poll, support Trump. The next closest person in the lineup is DeSantis with 12, which means that Donald Trump leads the pack by 50 points. Is there any way anybody can overcome that? I mean, isn't it pretty much over if those numbers hold?
The answer is what I've been saying for a long time, which is no. There's no way someone else is going to overcome the strongest, most powerful, and consequential political movement in our generation. This is after skipping a debate. This is after 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. This is after they said he was buried after January 6th. Every time they've said he's done, it's not anywhere near done. I was staggered by that number too. I saw it in my inbox, and then I saw it on Fox News. 62-12. You can't. This was supposed to be a formidable group. Now, even if you add them all up, that's still a margin, a lead that any candidate would take at any point in any primary. 62 points up. So it is over, and that's why the left is careening so dangerously with the things that they're doing, because that they realize legally is the only way they can attempt to stop him.
Well, and so look at and compare and contrast that with what the Democrats are saying to themselves. I don't often read the Washington Post, but I did when I saw this headline. An opinion piece by David Ignatius. There's not a more liberal opinion writer in the Washington Post. And he writes in today's Washington Post that President Biden should not run again in 2024. It was something that was whispered among Democrats, and now increasingly it seems like that conversation is moving to the public. Many people urging this president not to run in 2024.
Yeah, it's obvious that he shouldn't. It's obvious that he can't. It's obvious he's not capable, and it's obvious he's not running the show. David Ignatius, a friend of this White House, very much so, had the courage to say out loud what everyone else is thinking. By the way, he spends, you read it, 4/5 of the op-ed saying what a great president Joe Biden is, but then goes on to say it's just not possible. And says Kamala Harris is no alternative for vice president
that's
either.
Right. Yeah.
He's calling for the whole ticket to be removed. And the reasons it's significant is that I think at this point the only the group of people stopping that from happening is Joe and Jill Biden. And Joe opens the paper the same way he has for 50 years in politics and reads the columnists of the New York Times and the Washington Post. And this has impact because he will see it. He'll be offended by it, but he'll also be forced to grapple with. You can put out all the $25 million ads you want, but people see Joe every day, and they know what he's capable of. I've said on your show multiple times I still think Joe will be the nominee, but if you keep seeing things like this, maybe not, but it's going to have to happen soon, and that's the point David Ignatius makes too.
And that's what he said. It has to happen soon, or it can't happen at all. And I think that there are a lot of people now beginning to think that Democrats are reaching critical mass on that point and have to make a decision, and he has to make a decision quickly. But if he doesn't want to back down, will anybody else have the gonads to challenge him?
Who's it going to be? No one has so far. Gavin Newsom is basically circling around the runway, waiting for air traffic control to tell him he can land. He's doing everything but declaring, but he's very definitive. I support Joe Biden. So I think they will crowd everyone out until, they're going to, RFKJ, they're going to sideline him. So until he makes that call, they're stuck with him.
Yep. Well, it's a very interesting thing that's developing, and it's so interesting to see on one side of the equations, conservatives are glomming in a big way, in a supportive way of Donald Trump, and now it's now coming out into the open, the things that were once being whispered by the Democrats. What are we going to do? This guy can't win it.
You know why? Because you know what they see? They see that poll number. They see poll numbers in battleground states. They see places like Iowa where Trump, not just Republican primary battleground, every battleground state where Trump wins, and they're in panic mode because Joe's big calling card was, I can beat Trump. Well, if he can't, then they got to get rid of him.
All right. So do you think the turning point for Democrats was that horrific, that very bad press conference that took place in Hanoi the other day?
I mean, how can Sleepy Joe tell the world he wants to go to bed? I mean, you can't. You're reinforcing everything everybody already knows about you, and now every speech you give, you're telling falsehoods, which we've always known, but now it's habitual because he's falling back on familiar patterns. This world is really, really dangerous. There's a lot of Democrats. There's some Democrats who see it through a serious lens of like, we got to have a capable executive, but most of them see it through the obsession of preventing Trump, and they can't let him. I mean, they're going to have to run a beach or a basement strategy or a combination of both in order to win. But he's got to. You can do that when you're a candidate. You can't do it when you're the president of the United States. And so they realize he's going to be running a gauntlet for the next 15, 14 months that they can't hide from, and he's only going to get worse. So I think it was a big part of it. You're right.
I'd like to look at Capitol Hill for a moment, if you don't mind. And the speaker said yesterday, we're going to begin the process on a committee level of an impeachment inquiry. And it seems to me, as I look at McCarthy right now, he's walking a tightrope. I mean, he's got to find the balance between trying to do the things that keep the moderates on board and the conservatives. I mean, if he loses 5 moderates, the Democrats can win a big vote. If he loses 5 conservatives, the Democrats can win a lot of votes. What a difficult position to be in, and he's under pressure from the right and would seem from the more moderate wing of the Republican Party.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he got the job he wanted after 13 rounds of votes, and he knew it was going to be tough, and here we are. I guess with the impeachment inquiry, it feels like almost too cute by half. I mean, I know he may not have the votes at this point, but he thinks he's going to get concessions from more conservative members by going for an inquiry. But the inquiry, it feels piecemeal. You're not doing a House vote. You're not really doing it in the way you said you would do it. And, you have all these appropriation bills. You got a government shutdown looming. You can't really pass anything because the Senate and Biden I think he'd be smart to say I'm going to govern aggressively and conservatively, and that would mean catering to one side of the spectrum, because ultimately a lot of these moderates, once evidence comes out of Biden, I believe will be compelled to vote for impeachment. I just don't. I think you can force them to not hold out any longer by creating and providing more evidence. But it's a job I wouldn't want right now, Brian. I don't know how
it's like herding cats, walking a tightrope and herding cats at the same time. Anyway, and juggling. You might throw juggling in there, too. It's a difficult job of finding the balance there. Let's see. What else did I want to talk to you? Well, I do have one oddball question. And I hope you don't take any offense by this, but I do see you from time to time on Fox, and I saw you sitting in that middle chair, and boy, what a position that is to be in. Where do you get your socks, man? I'm telling you, those socks. Every time I see you, you have the greatest looking socks.
Well, there are very limited ways in which you can bring out a little flair on TV. So it's either ties, socks, or pocket squares. It is a combination of a few purchases, a lot of wonderful viewers who have sent me some pretty crazy socks over the years. Great sock companies that come on the show. So yeah, I like to mix it up a little bit, have a little fun. Sometimes they're a little much. But like I looked at myself this morning, I had bright yellow socks on. And I turned to my wife and I thought, either I look good or I look like a clown. I don't know. But, I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit.
No, I think it's charming and it's a great. I mean, I really love you when you get to do some of these other things. I guess, that increasingly we turn to politics, it seems, between now and I mean there's a lot of else going on in the world right now. It seems to me that trumps politics as the big story. Do you see anything out there?
No, I mean, Brian, I was just talking to a producer in my office a few minutes ago, and we're staring down the barrel of a primary that Trump will win, a possible impeachment of a sitting president with real evidence of crimes committed with foreign influence and bribery, the possibility of the Republican candidate going to jail. I mean, that is, I think, the most likely situation with juries in Atlanta, New York, and D.C., even though he's innocent. And then he's running from there while appealing. And how do you have debates? How do you have an election? What happens with? We are in absolute uncharted territory, which I don't want my life consumed by politics. Most people's life shouldn't be. That's the wrong way to live life. But it's going to dominate because we're about to enter a danger zone as a republic like we've never seen.
Well, and you're right, uncharted territory. And then that doesn't even include the possibility of a third-party run, which makes it much more complex.
Yeah, Mitt Romney retired today, says he's not going to run. We'll see. There's another retirement induced by Trump, which is a long overdue.
Yeah, it's 50 minutes past the hour. Thank you so much, Pete. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Brian.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
An artificial intelligence briefing, domestic violence in Tennessee, teenagers scamming people, and a dog killed at a Tennessee park this morning. Those stories, more coming up 5 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk about a crisis that has moved from the border to right here in Middle Tennessee in a very, very sad way. And then also, on a lighter note, we're going to debut a brand new segment featuring our own Mac Morey.
Woo!
That's right. I think we'll just reveal it. It'll be at about 25 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. A special segment that, if it goes well, there's no pressure here, Mac, but if it goes well, we're going to do this again and again, because I think Mac brings to our table some really wonderful skills that I would like to take advantage of. So you don't want to miss Mac's new segment. It could be the only one. I mean, honestly, no pressure. 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. I want you to write down this number, 615-246-5009. That's the number to the Wellness Institute of Nashville. But there's another thing that I want you to know about that number may come in handy. Something that's very important to Dr. Kevin Mitchell. It's a way to show your patriotism through flying our grand old flag. The Wellness Institute of Nashville is putting American flags back into cities and towns with something known as the Patriot Way Project. And already, the Wellness Institute is responsible for having 75 new flags flown. You can donate at patriotwayproject.com or just come by and visit their space-age high-tech spinal facility in Mount Juliet and learn more about them, and maybe you can take care of it there. Listen, when you visit, they want you to know that you come in for spinal or knee treatments or whatever it may be, but they're in the process of taking some of those profits and giving back to our community. Come see them today. Tell your friends, family, and loved ones about the Patriot Way Project at patriotwayproject.com. That's at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Again, the number 615-246-5009. Learn more about all the things they can do for you by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 80 degrees, a mostly sunny day on Music Row. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. In the nation's capital, a Senate briefing on artificial intelligence had members of both parties expressing their worries about the emerging technologies. Stephen Portnoy reports technology executives also shared their concerns.
The closed-door session brought together some of America's leading tech executives to educate senators about the risks and benefits of AI. Elon Musk says a regulatory agency should serve as a referee.
I think the consequences of AI going wrong are severe.
The Tesla and SpaceX CEO, who last year bought Twitter, says he worries about civilizational risk.
There is some chance that above zero that AI will kill us all. I think it's low, but there's some chance.
Members of both parties emerged from the summit to say it may soon be time for a new law.
And right now in Middle Tennessee, a woman is dead. In Columbia, Tennessee, a man injured after a domestic dispute last night. It happened around 10:30 p.m. Fox 17 says police were called to a house on Woods Drive and found 48-year-old Carol Ann Coleman dead, 59-year-old James Edward Davidson Jr. suffering from self-inflicted wounds. Davidson is now in critical but stable condition, and officials are charging Davidson with first-degree murder, and he will be served once he's out of the hospital. And Nashville shoppers say they were scammed out of hundreds of dollars by teenagers claiming they were fundraising.
Channel 4 says it happened in a West Nashville shopping center parking lot. A woman says she was approached by some teenage boys who asked her to donate toward their basketball team on Venmo. She says she did. $10. But then she says one of the boys grabbed her phone and put in $500. Then they all jumped into a car and sped away. Metro Police say they've received at least 2 reports like this and have now assigned a detective to the case. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Crime in Tennessee. A man shot and killed a German Shepherd this morning at Percy Warner Park. It was around 10:30 a.m. The man was getting out of his car when the unleashed dog was chasing down a squirrel and approached him reportedly aggressively. This man then allegedly fired his weapon 3 times at the dog, killing it. The owner did admit that the dog was not leashed, and the shooter told officers that he's afraid of dogs because his brother was mauled by one as a young child. No charges have been pressed against the shooter. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, in for another hour or two as we bring you news and information you can use. Glad you're with us on this 13th day of September. I always really enjoy, I got to say, our conversations with Pete Hegseth each year. And I think basically he does too. I mean, I get the impression that he really enjoys these conversations.
I think he keeps coming back every week, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about it is we never hear from him. We never really have to even worry about it. We just say, unless he calls us and says, I'm on vacation or I've got to be out, I'm going to be on a plane and I can't do it. We don't worry about it. If we don't hear from him, we know that he'll just show up at the appointed time and place. He's as steady as a clock, man. I'm telling you, he's been great.
Except when he gets the time zones wrong. But,
yeah, he wanted to come on an hour early today, but that's because he was in the wrong time zone. I just want you to remind you that we're going to do something here in about, about 13, 14 minutes from now with Mac Morey. Now, Mac Morey is a newsman, exceptional newsman, but he has a real passion beyond news, which is sports, and we're going to tap into that with a special segment that we call Mac Murray's Wide World of Sports. I'm going to get Wide World of Sports. I'll never get through that.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I won't be able to say it once. But anyway, so you want to hang around for that. In the meantime, I'm going to start with something deeply troubling. For anyone within the sound of my voice right now, this is deeply troubling. This story is in the Tennessean, and it's good as far as it goes because it gives me some great numbers to work with here, but I want you to know that this is exactly what I've been talking about. I've been pounding the table and pounding the table and pounding the table on this issue and telling you, and now here are the statistics that back me up. I'm right about this, and you need to be very concerned, and you need to listen very closely to what I'm about to tell you. Because when we talk about the border, it seems like something that's so far away, and you say, Wilson, you're wearing me out with all this border stuff. What are we going to do about it? Well, I'm going to tell you what you can do about it, but here's the greater concern. What happens on the border doesn't stay on the border. What happens on the border is making its way into every town in America. And it's especially hitting Nashville hard. And I'm going to prove it to you, if you'll just bear with me for a moment, okay? Here we go. From the Tennessean, but really the data was compiled by the San Francisco Chronicle, and many people have picked up on this story, but as it relates to Nashville, it's scary. Nashville Metro had the second highest rate of overdose deaths in the United States in the year 2022. All the numbers that I'm going to give you here are for 2022, the best numbers that we have. 754 people died by drug overdose in the Nashville area last year, a number that makes Davidson County the second deadliest major metro in the country. And fentanyl was linked to over 77% of those cases. I'm sure in this year we're on track for it to be much worse than that, but these are the best numbers that we have. Davidson County, are you listening? Listen carefully. Davidson County has the second highest rate in the country behind Baltimore. Behind Baltimore for overdose deaths in metro over 500,000 people, according to the data that was compiled by the San Francisco Chronicle in 2022, that is. Shelby County, 12th in the country. But Davidson County, Metro Nashville, the second highest overdose death rate in the country for overdose deaths in metros over 500,000 people. We're number 2. Did you catch that? Behind a horrible city, one of the worst cities in our country, Baltimore, Maryland. Oh, they call it Charm City. There's no charm in Charm City. They've got a horrible problem. It is a disaster of a town, and we're right there behind them when it comes to overdose deaths. Now, you say, well, what's the deal? Well, where did the overdose come? Well, they're fentanyl. And where's the fentanyl coming from? From across the Mexican border. Why? Because the President of the United States cares more about getting people across the country on the hope that they will one day become Democrat voters than he cares about the people who are dying by fentanyl. about the tragedy that he brings to cities like Nashville. Davidson County, Nashville, the second highest rate in the country. Wow. That's shocking. Davidson County leads Tennessee in overdose deaths. Shelby, 608. Knox, 532. Hamilton, 233. Rutherford County, 113 in 2022. But roughly 100 people for every 100,000 people who live in Nashville-Davidson County died of a drug overdose. And again, fentanyl accounted for 77% of those deaths. Cocaine, about 30% of the case. Methamphetamines were found in some of the cases as well. And Tennessee not doing particularly well when you look at the entire country. Tennessee is 8th in the country for overdose deaths according to the database. 3,854 deaths are from across the state in 2022. I want to say that again, nearly 4,000, a little short of 4,000. Unbelievable. Here are the 10 states that have the biggest fentanyl death problem. Number 1, California. Number 2, Florida. Number 3, New York. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Pennsylvania. Number 6, Ohio. Number 7, North Carolina. Number 8 in the country is Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. And again, Nashville is the second worst, metropolitan area when it comes to overdose deaths, and the vast majority of those are fentanyl deaths in the entire country. I mean, honestly, think about it. We got a worse problem per capita than they have in Chicago, in New York, in L.A., in San Francisco. Any of the major blue cities that you can think of around the country, they pale in comparison to the number of people that are dying because of fentanyl in Davidson County, Nashville. We have a tremendous problem. And I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't hear about anybody saying, we're having an awful lot of overdose deaths. Maybe we ought to do something about that. Why is this? I think that there are two things going on here. And my friends in law enforcement have backed me up on this. I want to share a text I got earlier today about D.A. Funk, police officer who I chat with on occasion, said the sad fact is that due to our DA, Mr. Funk, prosecution is less than 10% on drug charges unless it's attached to other greater charges like homicide, aggravated assault, etc. My fellow officers and I hardly ever get a guilty conviction with time served on any drug charge alone. Usually they just get probation if any sentence is handed out. That's the same problem that are going in some of the other blue cities around the country. There are prosecutors not willing to prosecute. There are prosecutors not willing to put bad people behind bars to solve the problem. They're getting a slap on the wrist and they're sent back on their way. I really worry about our community and the loss that we are suffering and the tragedy that we are imposing upon people. I mean, if you've lost a loved one to an overdose, I'm really sorry. But you're being let down by the system. You're being let down by a Democrat president who has opened up our borders and said, I care more about potential voters down the line than I care about the people who are dying because of fentanyl. I care more about that, about the politics of the situation than the tragedy of the situation. Not only is it a human trafficking disaster, not only is it a humanitarian crisis, people are dying trying to get across the border because they know, well, if we just get there, we'll have a better way because they'll give us a piece of paper and they'll let us into the country. But people die in the deserts, the Chihuahuan deserts, trying to get into this country. It's a humanitarian crisis. caused by this president, who myopically looks at the fact that we want some of those people to come to this country so that one day we can make them citizens and they can vote, and they will vote Democrat because we let them in. I hate to be that crass about it, but that's exactly what goes on. I want you to understand how it works on the border. Now, I've been to the border twice since this crisis started. And here's what you find out when you talk to law enforcement on the border. There is a first wave that comes across the border early in the morning. These are the people who want to have contact with the Border Patrol or with ICE. They seek them out, and it's sort of a big game. The coyotes, the cartels, they send them across the river, and they're met on the other side by the Border Patrol and by ICE, and they are given the processing, and they're processed out, given a piece of paper that says, you know what, you are free to go into the country. We'd really appreciate it if you just check in with us sometime. Let us know where you are. But America is this way. By the way, do you need a bus ticket? Do you need a plane ticket? How can we facilitate this? And then they're sent out into the country. Not only is that a resource suck on cities like New York and Chicago and the blue cities, it's hitting small towns as well. You go talk to people who are teachers and ask me how many of these kids are showing up in our schools. We've got to teach them. We've got to carry them. And people from the border come here. That's one part of the problem. But that happens early in the morning. And then the Border Patrol and the ICE folks, they're tied up doing processing and paperwork and doing what the Biden administration tells them they want. Let as many people in as you possibly can. And then a short time later, after the Border Patrol and the ICE are all tied up, the second wave comes. Well, they're not coming in the obvious areas. They're being secreted across the river by the coyotes and the cartels, and they do not want to come in contact with law enforcement. They run when they see law enforcement because they're bad people. And along with all those bad people coming across is fentanyl and other drugs. The Border Patrol estimates that they only get about 10% of the stuff that comes across the border. They only interdict about that much of it. The vast majority of it is coming across the porous border because the cartels are doing what the cartels do. They're taking advantage of the chaotic situation on the border. And if you think that it doesn't reach where you live, then you're mistaken. Because these statistics are from 2022. I bet the 23 statistics are just as bad. We have a real crisis in Davidson County, Nashville, and I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't hear anybody saying we've got to address this. So what can you do? You say, well, what can I do, Brian? I don't have any way of helping out here. Well, let me just say this. What we're doing is not working. The prosecution, I think, is weak. And the Democrats in charge of Davidson County, Nashville, are not paying attention to the real issues like fentanyl that is killing our children and our community. So I would say maybe it's time to do something different. If you're in Davidson County, that could start by voting for a Republican instead of a Democrat. Alice Rowley, I don't know if she has it in it, but I believe she will do something different than what we're doing right now. Because what we're doing right now ain't working, and it starts with leadership. I've looked at the numbers of people who have voted thus far in this runoff election. If everybody who is a conservative or who doesn't think that it's working in Nashville goes to the poll and votes for Alice Rowley, she can win. She can win. I have been very, very pessimistic about the opportunities, but I looked at the numbers. She can win. And that would be a change. That'd be something that you can do to start the change. But I think we need to hold our DA accountable for the people who are not being prosecuted. And I think we need to reassess our situation about what we're doing to stop the scourge of fentanyl that is coming across the border and landing right in our own neighborhoods. Tragic news. that we're number 2 behind Baltimore, for God's sakes. 21 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. And let me tell you about Busy Bee. If you've got problems with your AC or maybe your plumbing issues, you want to pick up the phone and call Busy Bee at 615-775-7833. They will buzz right over to your hive, and I promise you, in short order, they'll get you up and running. I've had great experiences with the folks at Busy Bee. They redid all of the air conditioning in my home, and I couldn't be more happy. Listen, you want to become a member of the Beehive Club for as little as $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems. One at the beginning of heating system, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, don't mess around. Just call the folks I would call. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833. Again, that number, 615-775-7833. Online at busybeehvac.com.
The White House reacting to the impeachment inquiry news. Multiple threats in Tennessee in the last week now being investigated, and a rare virus causing concern in India. I'll have those stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Are you ready to kick off this new segment? I mean, honestly, I'm tingling with anticipation. Have a little fun here with a new segment that will feature our Mac Maury. You know, he does a great job with news, but I think honestly, he has a passion for sports that we need to tap into. And you know, we're not going to do a lot of sports, but we are going to do one little segment a day with something we call Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport. The thrill of victory.
Yes.
And the agony of defeat.
It's the Wide World of Sports with Mac Maury. Now, here is the host of your program, Mac Maury. I mean, how's that? The crowd goes wild.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I should have had some applause, Max. All right, there we go.
Oh, my gosh. All right. I'm blushing. Thank you. Quiet down.
Well, okay, so, you know, honestly, you know, we think that, you know, really any day. Oh, we get the music. Okay, there we go. Got to get the stinger, as they say. You know, Jim McKay is rolling over in his grave right now.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, Mac Maury, what is our sports story of the day? We think that, you know, every day there's at least one great story that has to do with sports that everybody can sort of, you know, lock in on. What is the story that you bring us today?
Well, today, this one's going to be revolving around the National Basketball Association. I know a lot of people are already rolling their eyes. The NBA, I know. Well, this one, you can roll even harder because this is exactly why the NBA is having issues, and they're not going to get a lot of you listeners to watch for this exact reason. One of the biggest issues going on in the NBA is load management. These players playing a not very physical or collision sport, sitting out games, resting when they're fully healthy. You know, you got star players like LeBron James and Kevin Durant sitting out 20, 30 games a year just because they don't want to play. Yeah, because they're getting load managed and they know, well, I'll be fresher for the playoffs and I won't have to play here. So you've got families spending $300 to bring their family to a game to watch Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, you name the player. And then, the news comes in a couple hours before the game. LeBron James, in parentheses.
Not starting, right?
Yeah, knee. And he doesn't have a knee injury. Nothing's wrong. He's fine. He's resting. So now the NBA, because of this overwhelming issue, is saying we're going to have the new player participation policy, which is going to, yes, which means now you're going to receive fines if you sit two star players. So on a national televised game in particular, if you have two players on your team, which a lot of good teams do that made an all-star team ever in their career, if you rest them at the same game, you will be fined up to, well, it'll be for the first violation $100,000 to that player.
Wow.
Then the next $250
to the player.
It'll be to the player,
organization.
To the
right?
organization, yes, to the organization. My mistake. And then it'll be $1 million more for every fine after that. Wow. So you've got, if it's a in-season tournament game, a national televised game, or obviously any sort of playoff game, and if you've got guys sitting out, you're going to get fined now, which it's crazy. Basically, what they're asking is these players to play. That's what's going on. You're just asking the players to play basketball.
Hey, you millionaire! How about earn your money?
Yeah,
get up off that bench. Yeah, you pipe. You know, well, but how can you determine if you say, well, my knee is sore? How can you say it's not sore?
So
that's a good question.
That's really the thing that a lot of people are worried about, because right now you can't really determine whether it is or it isn't. And there's going to be exceptions to the rule. Let's see, I'm reading right here. If a team contacts the NBA at least a week before a back-to-back game, which I know, Brian, and you, Chris, you guys watching NBA growing up, guys like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, they're not sitting out because they play 2 nights in a row.
No.
Imagine a football player saying, hey, you know, I can't go today. The mentality in this sport's got to change, but at least they're trying.
All
it's
right.
Just absurd.
That's crazy,
There's
man.
a good reason why I was not watching NBA basketball.
That's right.
Yep.
Mac Maury, I think a great start to our new segment. Every day we're going to do this when we're lucky at about 5:25 or so. Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. I think the first round was, a complete success.
Appreciate it.
And on that note, it is time for Mac Maury to do the news now. Get busy, son.
5:31. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 79 degrees in Nashville. We got a complete weather forecast. The latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. The White House reacted today to impeachment inquiry into President Biden launched by House Republicans. Andy Field gives us the latest from Washington.
The Biden White House saying Speaker Kevin McCarthy launched the Biden impeachment probe without a vote because
He knows that even his own members weren't going to support this.
Spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre saying even some Republicans admit there is no evidence President Biden profited from his son's businesses. The White House calling the inquiry extreme politics at its worst.
Right now in Tennessee, Metro Police looking into multiple threats that have come just over the last week. Between September 7th and September 13th, there were threats made to the Nashville International Airport, a police precinct, the Hard Rock Cafe downtown, the AT&T building, and 2 Metro high schools, including MLK High School, today. And right now, officials believe that the threats are coming from outside of the state. Other cities around the nation are also seeing an increase in these threats. And parts of southern India growing concerned after 2 people died of a rare virus. Ines de la Catera with more.
India's southern state of Kerala shutting some schools, offices, and public transportation in an effort to stop the spread of the rare and deadly Nipah virus, already claiming the lives of 2 people. Another adult and child are infected in a hospital. Over 130 people have been tested for the virus, which is believed to be spread by contact with the fluids of infected bats, pigs, or people. This is the state's 4th outbreak of the virus since 2018.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
I want to tell you about King and Associates Insurance in Brentwood. I've been in business for over 25 years as an independent agency, and that is to your advantage. I think there's a couple of reasons why it really works for people. Number one, you're going to get personal service. I mean, when you call this number, 615-329-8121, you're not going to reach a call center. You're not going to get one of those recordings that say, oh, your call is important to us. You know what? You're going to be shocked, stunned, and amazed, but an actual person will pick up the phone every time, and they'll be there to help you. And then the other thing is, because they're an independent agency, they can pick and choose the policies that are right for you. They don't have to try to push a square peg into a round hole and make the policy work for you. They look at you as an individual. They look at your needs. They ask the right questions, and they get you a policy that helps you, that really fits your needs. I mean, that's the advantage of an independent agency, and an advantage you should think about this, because especially if you bundle, you can save a ton of money. Multi-policy discounts can save you 20, 25, 30, 35%, huge savings. So what you need to do is get your royal review with King & Associates. Just log into tkinginsurance.com, that's tkinginsurance.com, and begin the process. King Insurance and Associates, you'll get royal treatment and great rates. Time for a 2024 update, where we bring you the very latest about how things are shaping up for perhaps the most important election in our lifetime. Let's see. I have some numbers that you're going to find, I think, quite amazing. You say numbers? No, listen to these numbers. Here it is. There is a new poll out that looks at how Republicans are leaning and who they are lining up behind for the Republican nomination for president. Now, we told you that Donald Trump is doing very well in this regard, but this new poll takes that to a new level. Are you ready? This is pretty shocking. There's a Quinnipiac poll. I always have trouble. I just call it a Q poll. Trump comes in with 62% of the support. That's right. Republicans say to the poll organization that they will support Trump. 62% of those polled said they will support Trump. That's one of the highest numbers that I've seen. In fact, I think it is the highest number I've seen. But what's shocking is that DeSantis comes in number 2, and only 12% of Republicans say they will support DeSantis. 62% for Trump, 12% for DeSantis, which means that Trump leads the pack by 50 votes, by 50%. Wow, 50 points. Shocking, stunning, amazing. There is no way, if these numbers continue and if they are a real true reflection of where Republicans lie, there is little doubt that Donald Trump will become the nominee of the Republican Party. I can't imagine a scenario where somebody can come from 12 to defeat Trump when he's carrying 62% of the vote. That's a new one. I've never seen any number like that. And again, the Q poll has a pretty good reputation, all right? So that is the first thing that I want to share with you with regard to 2024. The other thing I want to tell you is compare and contrast that with what Democrats are now saying about President Biden. I want to read from you an editorial. Now, normally I don't read editorials that come from the Washington Post, and you'll forgive me if there's a line or two in here that you say, what are you talking about? I need you to understand as I read this, you are eavesdropping on a very liberal columnist for the Washington Post, writing for the benefit of other Democrats. And his opinion piece is entitled, pretty straightforward, President Biden should not run again in 2024. Again, from a very liberal columnist in the Washington Post. I read the Washington Post so you don't have to. Now I'm gonna skip over the first few graphs because in order for him to do this and tell Democrats this, he has to sort of butter up, the president of the United States and those that support Joe Biden. And they go on and they try to make the case that he's had a remarkable run. I don't believe that, but he does. He's making that case. And, you've accomplished so much, Mr. President. But about 5 or 6 graphs in, he changes his direction and the tone of his opinion piece. I don't think Biden and Vice President Harris should run for re-election. Again, a Democrat talking to Democrats. It's painful to say that, given my admiration for much of what they've accomplished. But if he and Harris campaign together in 2024, I think Biden risks undoing his greatest achievements. He wrote in his political testament in his inaugural address, "When our days are through, our children and our children's children will save us. They gave us their best. They did their duty. They healed a broken land." And he adds, "Mr. President, maybe this is that moment when duty has been served," suggesting that you've done all you can do. It's time to cede the stage. He continues, Biden carries 2 big liabilities into a 2024 campaign. He would be 82 when he began a second term. According to a recent Associated Press poll, 77% of the public, including 69% of Democrats, think he's too old to be effective for 4 more years. Biden's age isn't just a Fox News trope. It's been the subject of dinner table conversations across America this summer. Because of their concerns about Biden's age, voters would sensibly focus on his presumptive running mate, Harris. She is less popular than Biden, with a 39.5% approval rating, according to the polling site 538. Harris has, according to Ignatius, many laudable qualities, but the simple fact is she has failed to gain traction in the country or even with her own party, and that's true. Biden could encourage a more open vice presidential selection process that could produce a stronger running mate. And he goes on to name several people he thinks might be good running mates and good alternatives to Harris. He said, but breaking up the ticket would be a free-for-all that would alienate black women, a key constituency. Biden might end up more vulnerable if he did that. He goes on to say, Biden has never been good at saying no. He should have resisted the choice of Harris, who was a colleague of his beloved son, Beau, when they were both state attorney generals. He should have blocked then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, which has done considerable damage to the island's security. He should have stopped his son Hunter from joining the board of a Ukrainian gas company and representing companies in China. And he certainly should have resisted Hunter's attempts to impress clients by getting Dad on the phone. Again, remember, we're listening to a Democrat talking to other Democrats. Amazing. Biden has another chance to say no, to himself this time, by withdrawing from the 2024 race. It might not be in character for Biden, but it would be a wise choice for the country, writes David Ignatius in the Washington Post. Well, I think this is the beginning. I mean, we've seen some other people who've come out and said basically what Democrats have been whispering to themselves for some time now. That Joe Biden, really is coming in as a very weak candidate and may not be able to win. And so the Democrats are now openly fretting, what do we do if Biden is our nominee? He goes on to say, if there's going to be a change, you've got to make it now. And he's right. If the Democrats are going to make a change, they probably are going to have to do it pretty quickly. I think the only prediction that I have made is I do not believe that Democrats will allow this to go forward much longer, that they desperately know that they have to find another candidate, and they've got to figure out how to navigate this thing. This is an open shot across Biden's bow, and as our friend Pete Hegseth said, the president got up this morning and he does what Democrats do. He reads the New York Times and the Washington Post, and he's bound to have seen this. Either he's in denial, as they say in Washington sometimes, denial, it's not just a river in Egypt. It's real. And he may be denying this, and maybe those around him are saying, no, Mr. President, you can do this. Don't worry about it. Whatever their plan is, Joe Biden, I think, is not the answer for Democrats. And so I would not be surprised to see a change. This story from justthenews.com. And by the way, Andy Ogles will be with us tomorrow at 4:35. And we'll talk about this maybe a bit more. I'm going to make a wager with the congressman. Tennessee GOP Representative Andy Ogles predicted Tuesday, that was yesterday, that former First Lady Michelle Obama will replace President Biden as the 2024 Democrat presidential nominee. I'm just not convinced that Joe Biden will be their nominee, Ogles said. I think that because of his health, because of the many bloopers and the fact that he gets lost in the Rose Garden, I think at the last minute you're going to see some switcheroo. Gavin Newsom has said it's not going to be him, and that really points to Michelle Obama maybe at the last minute stepping in there. I hear this all the time. I mean, you hear two things from Republicans as they look at what they might do. Hillary or Michelle Obama. Well, if you want to send Hillary Clinton back up, I think I'll take all of that you can put forward, because she is the worst candidate on the stump of anybody I've ever seen. She is yesterday's news. Democrats are not going to rally around her, and certainly she will not inspire the country if she runs again. The other scenario, Michelle Obama, I hear this all the time as well. People say, it's got to be Michelle. It's going to be Michelle. Of course it's going to be Michelle. Obama's still pulling the strings, and Michelle Obama will be the nominee. And all I can tell you is In all the years that I was in Washington during the time that Obama was president, almost daily or weekly, you heard some story from someone about how Michelle Obama hated being in the White House. She hated every single living moment of it. She came to detest the city of Washington. She hated being behind the wrought iron gates of the White House. She said she felt like a prisoner. She did everything she could to get out of the White House on a daily basis under a guise where she would go to the river and kayak every day, or she would sometimes go to the Kmart undercover with the Secret Service in tow. Anything to get out of the White House. She was not shy about telling people how much she hated Washington. I just don't think there's any way that Michelle Obama could be talked into doing this for, potentially 4 to 8 years. I mean, she's not going to do that. I just can't imagine that she would do it. But, if Andy Ogles thinks so, and a lot of people do, I'll tell you what, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I'll make a bet with the congressman tomorrow when he's on our air. I'll bet him $100 that it's not going to be Michelle. I don't know who it's going to be, but I can tell you it's not going to be Michelle. Believe me, in the back rooms of Washington, D.C., in the smoky-filled rooms where political decisions are actually made, Democrats are desperately trying to figure this one out. How do we ease Uncle Joe out? How do we get rid of Kamala and then put somebody in there who can actually win? Because I think they are now coming to the conclusion, and I think it's the correct conclusion based on the way these polls are shaping up, that Joe Biden cannot win and Donald Trump is on a path to victory. We'll see. A lot more here. A story about how independent voters will determine the 2024 elections. You've heard me talk about that. One quick note here. New Hampshire has shut down an effort by some on the Republican side of the equation in New Hampshire to get Trump off the ballot using the 14th Amendment. It's been shut down in New Hampshire. It's been rejected. And I think it virtually every time this animal raises its head, it's going to be shot down again in other states as well. I don't think we need to worry too much about the 14th Amendment option the way it stands right now. I think that it is not a good application of the 14th Amendment. 51 past the hour now of 5 o'clock. Stoltzco.com. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltzco are the guys you need to talk to. Talk about exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltzco difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or work barn. It can be a garage or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will withstand the test of time. They do not scrimp on quality. They do not cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. Now, I'm going to make a recommendation to you. Go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's STOLTZCO.com. Take a look at some of the examples they have there, and you're going to rapidly understand this isn't your granddaddy's pole barn. These are really nice structures, and then what you need to do is pick up the phone, 615-622-5992, and give them a call. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable, 615-622-5992. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up, because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. The idea here is a pretty simple one, to let you know how much your medical care is going to cost before it's actually delivered. What a concept. Smart Care plans begin at $69 a month. And listen what you get. You get unlimited office visits. I said unlimited. And free basic labs. I said free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. In conjunction with a high-deductible insurance plan, could save you and your family a lot of money. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient, and they see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. And Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and your children. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
.601, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 77 degrees in Nashville. Weather forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. President Biden urging the House and Senate to pass a temporary spending bill and avoid a government shutdown at the end of the month. Andy Field.
Spokesperson Corinne Jean-Pierre says House Speaker McCarthy and the president made a deal to avoid a debt default and spending limits.
A deal is a deal.
But Jean-Pierre says far-right House Republicans insist on new cuts and conditions.
The president, House Democrats, Senate Democrats, and Senate Republicans have stood by that agreement.
Jean-Pierre says that's not so in the House that is threatening the shutdown.
And the Pennsylvania prison escapee on the run for nearly 2 weeks finally captured. Derek Dennis.
The morning capture of Danilo Cavalcante celebrated by Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro as a success.
He was apprehended this morning with no shots fired.
Cavalcante did try to resist, but was ultimately subdued by a specialized tactical team with a dog, leaving him with a minor bite wound. The governor crediting the public with helping authorities close in.
Thank you for the constructive tips that they shared. Thank you for remaining on guard.
Cavalcante on the run for 13 days after escaping a Philadelphia area prison where he was serving a life sentence for killing his ex-girlfriend in front of her young children.
In Tennessee, Matthias Uribe, a 14-year-old Sumner County boy's parents, had to make an extremely tough decision with their son. They knew that they wanted him to live. Uribe had a terrible case of the flu, which caused him to be diagnosed with pneumonia and streptococcal toxic shock syndrome, went into cardiac arrest. All of the flow to Uribe's extremities ceased, and in order to live, doctors were forced to remove his limbs. The ICU pediatrician said that this is something that they hardly ever see. And now over to some entertainment news. Viral music star Oliver Anthony has canceled a show in Knoxville over ticket prices.
$90 for tickets and $200 for a meet and greet at the Cotton Eye Joe. The rich man north of Richmond singer says he lost his, well, I can't say it on the radio, but basically says that's too much. Anthony offered to refund people if necessary and says they'll find another place in the Knoxville area that can do $25 tickets and free meet and greet. Anthony's still on track to play in Nashville this weekend for Tootsie's Birthday Bash on Broadway. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good evening, everyone. 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. In for one more hour before we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one. We got a lot of stuff to cover here. Most importantly, what is going on with the probe into Hunter Biden's activities, and what does it mean to have an impeachment inquiry? Let's see what we can dredge up on this particular topic. First of all, I noticed that there are a lot of people right now, conservatives on Capitol Hill, they're just pounding the table. Matt Gaetz was doing this yesterday, saying, why haven't you subpoenaed Hunter Biden? Why haven't you tried to compel his testimony? And I'm telling you, that's not what should happen right now. I mean, yeah, there come a time when you get there, and you should perhaps subpoena Hunter Biden. And when that time comes, I don't think there'll be any hesitance to do that. I don't know how far it's going to get them, but I think indeed they will do that. But before you do that, shouldn't you have all the facts? And shouldn't you have all of the trail of the money? And shouldn't you have everything buttoned up? You know, you don't go into trial and then try to, wing it. You have all your ducks in a row. You have all of your investigation complete, and there's still a lot of stuff to learn. James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, was on News Nation or Newsmax, I'm sorry, and he was asked these very questions, really pressured by the anchor. Why aren't you calling Hunter Biden? And I think what he was trying to do was nicely not give away his strategy. But here's how that went.
When are you going to subpoena Hunter Biden and drag him into Capitol Hill for questioning?
Well, I think what I want to look at with Hunter Biden, if I could just have one thing with Hunter Biden, it would be his bank records. We see emails and text messages from the laptop where he complained to many people, including his daughter, that he had to give half his salary to his father. We have emails from Eric Sherwin, who was their bookkeeper, that would send Hunter an email saying, who's going to pay for your dad's new roof?
But, Congressman, why not subpoena him and have him testify on Capitol Hill? Even if he doesn't say anything, that's going to be uncomfortable for the president to have his son testifying on the Hill.
Right. Well, when I announced the investigation early on, I said we're going to follow the money. And Hunter Biden's more than welcome to come in front of the committee. If he wants to clear his good name, if he wants to come and say, these weren't 20 shell companies, they actually did something. It's very difficult. I think if it were easy to get a president or their son in front of a House committee, the January 6th committee probably would have done that with Donald Trump.
No, good point. Although son's different. Everyone always says Hunter Biden's a private citizen. So it's not like you're subpoenaing Joe Biden right now.
Private citizen, but what we found in the last few weeks is he was communicating back and forth with the government about Ukrainian policy, which is a huge problem for Joe Biden. Look, I would say we will get to the point very soon where we subpoena Hunter Biden. But at this point right now, I just want the bank records because we're following the money, and our concern is that Joe Biden was, in fact, benefiting from these schemes, from these illegal, corrupt activities of his son and brother.
I think he's exactly right. Listen, Comer has the big view here, and Comer's doing good work. It's not sexy to say you're trashing bank records. Everybody would like to have a big splashy hearing where Hunter Biden takes the fifth. But really, honestly, for anybody who understands how true investigations are conducted, Comer is doing it right. Get the facts, get the material, get all of the evidence together, and then, lay out your case. That's all that need to happen here. And by the way, Hunter Biden is not the target of Comer's investigation. It's the big guy. He doesn't care a whit about Hunter Biden. But it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Yesterday we began the impeachment inquiry that was announced by the Speaker of the House. I'm not going to relitigate all of that. He had a very difficult job, the Speaker did, trying to walk the tightrope between the moderates on one side who say don't do it, and the conservatives saying you got to do it, you got to do it. And I think that he tried to find a middle ground. I wouldn't wish the Speaker's job on a monkey on a rock. Honestly, it's like herding cats. But some of the conservatives were asked, why are you doing this impeachment inquiry? Reporters wanted to know, why are you asking for an impeachment inquiry? Nothing that you brought up thus far, they said, shows the president's involvement.
All right, last question. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you?
Oh, I don't know.
McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch. The prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blind, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
She said that, I don't know if you heard the question. She said, well, the American people don't see that. And he said, because you won't report on it. And he's right. That's Representative Scott Perry from Texas, a Republican. At the White House, questions about the impeachment inquiry were being thrown around at Karine Jean-Pierre, and she was dancing. I mean, she should be on Dancing with the Stars as much dancing as she did today.
Karine, can you describe how President Biden reacted to the impeachment decision by the?
I don't have anything to share about the president's reaction to this. All I can tell you is the president's focus on the American people, hardworking American people. You'll see him in a few minutes when he speaks to his cancer cabinet, and then you'll certainly hear from him tomorrow with the Bidenomics. They have spent all year investigating the president. That's what they've spent all year doing, and have turned up with no evidence, none, that he did anything wrong. I mean, that is what we've heard over and over again from their almost year-long investigation. And that's because the president didn't do anything wrong.
On impeachment, you just mentioned House Republicans' baseless claims. How confident are you that there will be no evidence that incriminates President Biden and Hunter's business dealings as this goes forward?
So let me just give a little bit of a lay down here, because I think it's important. Any specifics to the inquiry, certainly I want to say this at the top, as I said to Darlene, I'm going to refer you to my colleagues at the counsel's office. But I also want to be clear about a couple of things.
Well, then she went on to say, we need to be talking about Bidenomics. Okay. All right, Karine. You be you. So, look, I've got this great story here laid out by Stephen Nelson at the New York Post. I can't get to all of this because it's like 19 pages long, but I'm going to scan through it very quickly to lay out some of the questions that will be explored in the impeachment inquiry and why this administration should be very worried. You ready? Here we go. One of the questions, what is in Joe Biden's vice presidential emails? He's been using pseudonyms, remember, like Robert L. Peters or Robin Ware. And there are about 5,400 of those that are with pseudonyms, and they want to know what's in those emails. Will they get them? We sure hope so. What do Hunter Biden's bank records show? Republicans are preparing to issue subpoenas to banks for accounts held by Hunter and James Biden after previously subpoenaing some of their associates' bank records. The statements could show if money was transferred to Joe Biden from his relatives' foreign income streams, also whether they covered a substantial portion of his expenses. It's possible the House will later seek the president's bank records. Are there tapes backing up a $10 million Burisma bribe allegation? Mykola I can't say this guy's name, Zlochevsky, the owner of the Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings, allegedly told a paid FBI informant in 2016 that he was coerced into paying $10 million in bribes to the Bidens in exchange for Vice President Biden's help in ousting Ukrainian Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, who was canned by a vote of Kyiv's parliament in March of 2016. Zlochevsky allegedly kept 2 audio tapes of Joe Biden, 15 tapes of Hunter Biden, and incriminating financial records, according to the 1023 FBI file released by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Who did Hunter call in D.C. with Burisma Partners in December of 2015? Hunter stepped away from a December 15th meeting at the Four Seasons in Dubai to call D.C. with Shlofshevsky and Burisma board advisor Vadim Pozharsky. The Sun's former business partner, Devin Archer, told the Oversight Committee on July 31st. Listen, I did not hear this phone call, but he called his dad, said Devin Archer. So there may be records that establish whether Joe Biden took the call. Meanwhile, say that Hunter Biden may have been calling D.C. to communicate with lobbyists hired by Burisma. There are a lot of things to unpack there. Why did policy toward Shokin shift? The Oversight Committee is leading to impeachment inquiry alongside the Judiciary and Ways and Means Committee, demanded that the State Department share record on Joe Biden's role steering Ukraine policy under Obama, including his sudden decision to demand Shokin's ouster in exchange for $1 billion in loan guarantees. Why did Joe Biden meet with Hunter's Chinese business partners on a 2013 trip to Beijing? There's a great question. What happened to Hunter's 10% stake in a Chinese investment fund? Why did Joe Biden dine twice with Hunter's Ukrainian, Russian, and Kazakhstani business partners? I think that's a great question. You think there's nothing here, Democrats? Oh, man, we're just getting wound up here. What happened to Botarina's $3.5 million, and how was she able to escape Biden's sanctions? This is the wife of the former mayor of Moscow who coughed up $3.5 million. Where did that money go? What about all the big guy references? Who is the big guy? We all know who the big guy is. They're talking, of course, about the then vice president, now president of the United States. Did Hunter talk to his dad after meeting with a Romanian client? There's a question that needs to be explored. Was Joe Biden present for Hunter Chinese shakedown? That's a great question as well. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and there's a lot of things that still need to be investigated. That's why you don't push to get Hunter Biden on the stand before you have all the facts. This is not easy stuff. It's not easy digging all this stuff up, and they've got a lot of work to do. Let's see. Is there anything else here? I saw a story here. John Rose, Congressman John Rose, good friend of this program, wholeheartedly supports impeachment inquiry into President Biden. And there was a meeting today, apparently, where the Speaker of the House explained to members of the House Republican caucus exactly where they're going and what the plan is to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I think that was that should have been done perhaps before they opened up the House yesterday, but nonetheless, it is now happening. 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. There are a lot of diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are correct and accurate, and not all pills are good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, why don't you go to Eurofix? It could not only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from a lot of stress that ruins your weekend. Life is too short to get stressed out and angry. Be happy and go to Eurofix. At Eurofix, you'll get a 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. You will not receive high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you'll get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. Locations: Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, now Mount Juliet. Here's the number, 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you. I don't know what to make about this one. Representative Lauren Boebert was kicked out of a show in Denver on Sunday, and there is actually security footage of this. There's no sound to it, but there is the security camera video. She's at a performance. It's a stage performance of Beetlejuice. Now, the theater did not name Boebert, but a spokesman on Wednesday said that the video, which showed Boebert and a guest being escorted out of the venue, was of guests who were kicked out after audience members accused them of vaping, singing, using phones, and causing a disturbance. Now, listen, I take all of this with a grain of salt because I'm telling you, that in liberal downtown Denver, a conservative member of Congress, everybody knows who she is they're going to do everything they can to try to embarrass her and be rude to her. But, this is the allegation. I can confirm the stunning and salacious rumors. In her personal time, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is indeed a supporter of the performing arts, said Drew Sexton, Boebert's campaign manager, in a text message, adding that Boebert pleads guilty to singing along, laughing, and enjoying herself. Boebert is in her second term in Congress, running for re-election in Colorado's 3rd congressional district, largely covering the western half of the state. The theater disturbance first reported by the Denver Post. In her relatively short time in Washington, Boebert has built a national profile of being combative and grabbing media headlines, according to the AP, most famously by heckling Joe Biden during his 2022 State of the Union address. And on the social media platform X, Boebert said, "Everyone should go to see it if you get a chance. Please let me know how it ends." The two guests at first refused to leave the venue after an employee threatened to call police, the theater said in a statement. Once a police officer was on the way, the two left with an escort. The security footage provided to Associated Press does not appear to show Boebert vaping. So, how much of this is real? How much of this is just, somebody trying to make trouble for a political opponent? I don't know. But she is seen leaving after some conversation. They've got like 9 different cameras showing her walking out of the theater, I guess at intermission, and then going through the various venues and leaving, and eventually she and the person that she was with walking down the street hand in hand.
Interesting that all the cameras were at the ready.
Yeah, well, these were security cameras that were built into the system,
gotcha.
Yeah. So, it wasn't hard for them to find. Very interesting thing. I mean, look, I take all this with a grain of salt. Lauren Boebert is sort of, she is a passionate individual, and she believes what she believes, and she fights for what she believes in. And in a purple state like Colorado, she's in the Western District, which is a lot more conservative than Denver, Colorado Springs, and Boulder. Believe me, a lot more conservative than Boulder. If you've ever been to that part of the world, you know for sure what I'm talking about. And so, she goes to Denver to see a show, and apparently somebody makes trouble. What was she acting badly? I don't know, but I take it with a grain of salt because she is reviled by the left, and they would do anything, make up any kind of story to embarrass her. That's just, it's like one of these things back in the day when, Republicans would go out to dinner and then people would show up and shame them and yell at them and make them leave. It has the smack of that to me. I don't know. I wasn't there, but she seemed to be taking it in good fashion. So, I think that story is over for now. But who knew that there was first one? I didn't know that there was a stage play on Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'd like to see that show. Might be entertaining.
Yeah. All right. Let's call it 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, if you think about those great steaks you get over at Legend Steakhouse and you say, man, I love the way they taste, I love that flavor, you can get some of those same flavors right at home, fresh off your very own grill. Take a walk down your local grocery store aisle, places like Walmart, Kroger, and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. You'll likely see his famous fruit tea at your local grocery store, along with salad dressings and Johnny Fleeman's steak marinades. Johnny Fleeman's proprietary blend will give your steaks, chickens, or chop a flavor that will hit a home run with family and friends. It's low in sodium, about a third of other brands, so you don't have to worry about over-marinating. You can also use his marinade to enhance almost any dish, your favorite rice recipe, fresh vegetables, just about anything. If your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, visit johnnyfleeman.com. That's johnnyfleeman.com. And it goes without saying, for those times when you want someone else to do the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or for dinner. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, on this Wednesday, September 13th. Hopefully you're headed on the way home, and we're going to get you some information to make sure that you have things to talk about when you get to the dinner table. Just walk in, just plop down in the chair, and wow them with something that you learned on this program. I don't know what it would be. I mean, a lot of things.
There's a wealth of information. Yeah.
Wealth, yes, it is a cornucopia of information. This is a story that I did not see until just a few moments ago. It apparently happened just a short while ago. We've talked about this situation in New Mexico where the boneheaded governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has decided that you can't carry a concealed weapon, even if you have a permit. You can't carry it open. In New Mexico, apparently you can carry open. I don't know the laws there, but I mean, she said in Albuquerque and surrounding Bernalillo County that you cannot have a gun. You cannot carry a gun for 30 days. And she said, and the justification for all of this was, she said, well, it's a public health crisis, and so I'm issuing a public health emergency order that says no concealed weapons, no guns for 30 days. And everybody said, well, I mean, first of all, she might have checked with her attorney general, because her attorney general said, no, I'm not enforcing that. The police chief of Albuquerque said, well, if she's going to enforce that, it won't be my department. It will be the state patrol. The state patrol said, well, we're not getting involved in this. And then the sheriff's office in Bernalillo County said, we're not going to enforce this because it's unconstitutional. And I said at the time, I didn't think that they would bother to go to court, because by the time you got to court and adjudicated the thing, it would have been, moot, because there's only a 30-day order. I was wrong. A federal judge in New Mexico on Wednesday issued a temporary restraining order against the state governor's ban on carrying guns in Albuquerque and its surrounding county, a move which threw the state into the center of a U.S. gun rights debate. U.S. District Judge David Urias said Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's 30-day suspension of concealed and open firearm carry rights went against a landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling in June that said people have a right to carry a gun outside their home for self-defense. Well, of course he's right about that. A public health declaration by the governor does not trump a Second Amendment to the Constitution. And by the way, the Supreme Court has been very, very, very strong of late supporting Second Amendment rights. They just want the right to carry their guns, Urias said of the several plaintiffs who requested restraining orders against Lujan Grisham's September 8th emergency public health order. The Democrat governor issued the suspension on firearm carry laws to offer a cooling-off period in which authorities could address solutions to the state's high rates of gun crime. I've got one. Arrest bad people who are not following the law. This is the thing that just is so outrageous. The Democrat instinct is to say, we're just going to stop you from carrying guns because, we want to crack down on, and what that does is it simply says to the law-abiding citizens that unless you want to be in violation of the governor's order, which I would have been happy to have been in violation of that order if I were a New Mexico resident, I would have absolutely been happy to openly flaunt my disregard for what the governor had laid down. But, I mean, that's their instinct, because they know that law-abiding citizens will generally follow the law, even if they disagree with it. It's the folks who never go through the process of getting a concealed carry permit or doing whatever is following the hoops. And these are the people who will not follow the law. So it's like you're asking the people who are law-abiding, who want to have protection, because I'm telling you, apparently it's rough in Albuquerque at times. More on that in a moment. And so they know that, well, so do you want the people who are law-abiding citizens who follow the strictures of the law, who've done everything right, crossed every T, dotted every I, every jot and tittle, they follow the strictures of the law to the nth degree because they're law-abiding citizens, to unilaterally disarm so that the bad people who will not follow the law have the upper hand. No. Not happening. Lujan Grisham's order outraged gun rights advocates and drew backlash from fellow Democrats and law enforcement officials. There were also Democrats who called it unconstitutional. Gun control campaigners called the move courageous, and the Catholic Archbishop of Santa Fe feared more value was being given to gun rights than the life of an 11-year-old boy. So then she had some supporters, but that's okay. We have the Supreme Court and the Second Amendment of the Constitution on our side. Listen, honestly, what you need to do, I mean, I can tell you right now what's going on. They're not prosecuting people, and the bad people are running parts of Albuquerque. It is true. I told you the story about how I was in Albuquerque just a few weeks ago, taking a few days off, and that coming back through Albuquerque to catch our flight after being in the mountains, we went to, well, I'll just say it was a Target store. We needed a few things very quickly before we got on the plane. Went to a Target store, and this is one of these Target stores where you put in a parking garage and then you go up an escalator. At the bottom of the escalator that would take you up to the Target store, there were like 4 guys, police officers of some ilk. I don't know who they represented, but they were in paramilitary SWAT gear. That's how serious crime has gotten in Albuquerque. That you have to have people dressed. I mean, they had the body armor on. They had semi-automatic weapons. I mean, they had everything that you would need to take on a small army at the bottom of the escalator, checking people who were coming in and leaving the Target. Now, what does that tell you? Why would you need that? Could you imagine that happening in Mount Juliet? No, I can't. What it tells you is they got a crime problem, and that they, in order to secure the place, they had to bring in the heavy armor. It was shocking. I mean, very surprising. I actually talked briefly to the guys. We got a great restaurant recommendation from them. It was fantastic. But the bottom line is, just to see that tells you everything you need to know about what's going on in Albuquerque. Crime is running rampant. Generally, when crime runs rampant, it's because the law enforcement is not doing its job. Either I'm not necessarily blaming the local police. It could be that the prosecutors are not prosecuting. We have that problem here in Nashville as well. Look, this was destined to not go very far. And now, simply, I think this is wonderful because everybody thought, well, her 30-day thing would be expired before we get to court. No, the courts took it up right quickly and said, no, you can't do it. It's unconstitutional. What are you thinking about, you boneheaded governor? And even though it's a temporary injunction, by the time it wins its way any further through the court system, the 30 days would be over anyway. Maybe the battle is still on, but I mean, this governor is an idiot. This governor is a complete bonehead. And I'm so glad that we had a situation where the federal judges stepped in to end that chaos. Not necessary. Here's another story about it from the Daily Caller. Though I recognize my statutory obligation as New Mexico's chief legal officer to defend state officials, said that the Attorney General of New Mexico, when they are sued in their official capacity, my duty to uphold and defend constitutional rights of every citizen takes precedence. Simply put, I do not believe that the emergency order that she put down will have any meaningful impact on public safety, but more importantly, I do not believe it passes constitutional muster. Grisham told reporters after announcing the order that no constitutional right is absolute. If there's an emergency and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. Well, no, she can't, says a federal judge. So sorry. Bye-bye. Very quickly, we had a rather shocking economic report that came out today that said that in August there was a spike in inflation. Consumer prices rose 0.6% in August, and it was 3.7% over the last 12 months. So a year ago, it was 3.7% lower than it is today. Inflation is rearing its ugly head again, and it's, as I've been telling you, if only somebody had been saying this, that it has to do with gas prices. Oil prices are going up. Gasoline prices are higher. There is nothing on the horizon that shows me that gasoline prices aren't going to go down. I think they're going to go up and up and up and up. And once again, when you have higher gas prices, it ripples through the economy in a way where just about everything costs more. Your grocery costs more. The goods and services that you buy at the Lowe's or the Home Depot or whatever cost more. Why? Because you had to have oil and gas to get it to market, and if you're paying more, they have to raise the price on the product. The company that is selling the product to you, the consumer, has to raise prices to recoup that, and you end up paying more. That's called inflation. By the way, there is listen, I'm not an economic guru, but I mean, anybody can see this coming. We don't have the ability to throw more oil into the system to get the prices down for oil and gas and diesel and all that. So it means that oil prices and gas prices and diesel prices and even in the winter on the East Coast, the heating oil prices are going to continue to go up. We have no way to get it. We've already taken as much out as we can from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. You certainly go there again, there's going to be a howl and a cry like you've never heard before from the folks at Capitol Hill. So the bottom line is gas prices will continue to go up as we move into the heart of the political season over the next few months. I don't see any way around it. And that means inflation. That means the Fed has to keep raising interest rates to try to kill off inflation. We're back in the spiral. It's not going to be any better for a while. It is now 49 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and then help you make the mid-course corrections that might be needed to put you back on the right path. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance, and it starts with a simple phone call. Just call this number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. They'll ask you a few questions. They'll ask you for some information, and then they will get back to you. What do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all of your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path, that all the T's have been crossed, the I's have been dotted. Again, that number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com. You know, one of the hardest things that we see as we grow older is that our parents or our elderly loved ones are getting older as well. And they are reaching an age where they're starting to struggle with the day-to-day things that were once so easy, and now they need help. It reminds us that we're going to have to find some way to help them as they get older, and this is where assisted family care can come in. They can connect you with a responsible, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. Now, if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could well qualify for a little-known benefit to help cover these kinds of expenses. You see, many veterans are eligible for up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. But not everyone is eligible. If you're a veteran with wartime service, you could qualify. There's one way to find out. Go through the process. The application process is daunting and confusing, but the folks at Assisted Family Care can help you. Assisted Family Care will be there for you. Just visit assistedfamilycare.com. Here's the number, 615-833-9725.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up, because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.